Hello Year 3 and Year 4, welcome back to your English Lessons Live with me, Mr. Phillips. Hope you're happy on this well-dressed Wednesday, or hashtag again not ironed my shirt properly Wednesday. Same Twitter handles, same hashtags as always, hashtag St Anne's Live, at St Anne's Rain Hill. Yep, I'm memorising them now. Or you can email me at rsa.year6@3-saints.org.uk. That's where you can send all your work. Good to see you back in the writing room again after our little foyer into a technical reading lesson yesterday. I hope you enjoyed that. It was just a little bit easier, wasn't it, to have the text and stuff in front of you. So we'll carry on doing that. But writing is always best here in the moment. Pen, paper or whiteboard, that's the best way to do our writing, I think. So today we're going to carry on with our writing of The Wolves in the Wall, and we're at the point where we're now going to be telling the brother, aren't we? Now we've had two nice plot points where it's kind of used the same structure, and today we are going to start off in the same structure and then we're going to put a little twist on it, ready for the wolves to arrive next week. Okay, before we do that, should we start with a little bit of a spag warm-up? So Year 3 and Year 4, it's both the same for you today. I have given you a sentence on the board, and your sentence is, Peter and I took 4 coats into school yesterday. Not sure why, maybe they took them home by mistake, but they brought 4 coats into school. And you can see I've underlined 5 of the words. I've underlined Peter, I've underlined took, I've underlined 4, I've underlined into, and I've underlined yesterday. And then here at this side, I've given you 5 different types of word class: noun, verb, adverb, preposition, determiner. Let's quickly recap what they are. So a noun is a thing, a person, or a place. A verb is an action or a doing word. An adverb is a word that describes how or when or where an action was done. A preposition is locational language, the relationship between two things, where it is in relation to it or when it is. And then your determiner, it comes before a noun to tell you which noun specifically you're talking about. Okay, now we've looked at determiners and we've looked at prepositions, so hopefully you'll be able to spot some things. What I want you to do is each of the underlined words here matches one of these word classes. There's one noun, there's one verb, there's one adverb, there's one preposition, and there is one determiner. What I want you to try and do is pause the video there, pause the video there, and see if you can match the word classes here to the words here. Remember, each one matches one word. Have a little go at doing that for me now. I'm going to reach up here and have my last little bit of tea. Okay, so hopefully you've had a go at doing that. Now, when you have questions like this, I always tell my Year 6s, you must start with the ones that you know first. Start with the easier ones, and that will leave less options for the more difficult ones. Later, it's called process of elimination. So let's start with the nouns: people, places, or things. Well, looking at those selections of words, Peter took 4 into yesterday. There's a really obvious noun. There's a really obvious proper noun, which is Peter, because the name of a person. We know that those are nouns. We've been looking at those since we were in the infants. So we know that Peter is the noun. So I can now cross that off because we found our noun. The next easiest one is a verb. You know, what is the action? Is for an action? No. Well, is into an action? No, it's not something you can do. Is yesterday an action? No. Is took an action? Yeah, it is. It's the action to take something. When you try and think of a verb, always see if you can change the tense of it. You know, because you might say, oh, I can't took. Well, no, you can't took, but took is the past version of take. And you can take. So took here is our verb. Okay? And now we're left with determiner, preposition, and adverb. Now, I don't know about you, but I always find determiners really easy because I find a noun and I look before it to see if there's a word that tells us which noun specifically. So Peter is a noun. There's no word before it that tells which one specifically. So then I keep going and I find the next noun. Coats is a noun. It's a thing. And there is a word before it that's telling us which coats. It's not his coats, it's not their coats, it's four coats. And if you remember work, was it on Monday? I don't think it was on Monday, can't remember, maybe the end of last week. We looked at quantifying determiners, and we remember that a number before a noun is a quantifying determiner. So this one, 4, is the determiner, which now leaves us at into and yesterday. Okay, well, let's remember what we do about prepositions. Prepositions is the ball and the box. Can the ball yesterday the box? Well, not really. Can the ball go into the box? Well, yeah, it can. The ball moved from there inside. The ball can go into the box. And the boys were taking them into the school. So into is your preposition. It is your word that's telling you the relationship of place between two objects, which means we're left with yesterday having to be the adverb. And that makes sense because adverbs tell us how an action was done. You know, Peter and I took 4 coats into the school angrily, or Peter and I took 4 coats into the school quickly. But it can also tell you when they were done. Yesterday, we will take them tomorrow, things like that. So yesterday is telling you when they were taken. So Peter's the noun, took's the verb, for's the determiner, into's the preposition, and yesterday is the adverb. Okay, we'll keep doing a few things like that because it's really good just to be applying that knowledge of word classes to different contexts. Okay, and to be honest, once you know those ones, there's not that many more when you get into upper key stage 2. I think year 5 and year 6 only need to know about 3 or 4 additional ones to those. So you've done most of the legwork already. So for our writing, our wolves in the wall writing, should we recap what we've done so far? You know, and I really love our writing so far. So here we go. Lucy heard noises. Every night they came from behind the plaster and wallpaper of her bedroom walls, which were warped and peeling. They were bumping noises. They were bumping, thumping noises. They were bumping, thumping, and clumping noises. Like someone or something was trying to get in. The following day, Lucy decided to speak to her mum about the horrific, distressing sounds. "Mum," Lucy said cautiously, "did you hear anything last night?" Mum could barely drag her eyes from the TV. She shook her head and continued to shovel several handfuls of crisps into her mouth, slurping and crunching the entire time. As Lucy shuffled from the room, she thought it could have been Mum making those noises. It didn't seem likely. A little while later, Lucy approached her dad to discuss the haunting, chilling sounds. "Did you hear anything last night?" Lucy mumbled again. Dad could hardly hear his daughter over his booming tuba. He shook his head and proceeded to puff and pant, producing his ear-splitting music. As Lucy retreated away, she thought that maybe the sound had been Dad. It still didn't seem likely. And then we're at our place for today. Now, on Monday, we discussed the idea of like the Gruffalo and Julia Donaldson. When we have authors like that, they have the same kind of structure for events of a similar nature. So we did that with our mum and we did that with our dad. Both events are structured in very same way. She approaches, she speaks, they don't respond because of something, and then Lucy moves away again, wondering if they had made the noise, but it didn't seem likely. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start with that, and we're going to lead our audience into believing that they know what's coming, and then right at the end of the brothers section, we're going to change it. And that is how you create a bit of suspense and a bit of genuine shock for your audience, because we're going to build up their expectations like, oh, we know what's coming, and actually what they think is going to come doesn't happen. Okay, so let's start off by trying to build the same structure. So, you know, Should we write down our plot point? So it's for, and it's telling brother. And today we're not going to have any specific challenges because we're going to work on this idea of sweeping the rug out from under the feet of our reader and making them think one thing's going to happen, but they're not. So each of our plot points of Mum and Dad so far have started with a little adverbial phrase. So we've had a little while later, I think we had the following day, a little while later and the following day. So I want to do now, in the night time. We've had in the morning, we've had a little while later, and now we're going to have possibly later that day, or early in the evening, or when night had fallen. Maybe when darkness had fallen. That's quite an interesting one. Now that's not an adverbial phrase anymore, it's a subordinate clause, but it still works. When night had fallen, which is definitely a more creepy way of saying when it was night time. When night had fallen, comma, and then we have this idea of Lucy tried to approach, Lucy tried to speak. And I'm going to make it clear it's the last one. So I might say, Lucy tried one final time to speak to someone about the adjective sounds. I'm not going to say it's the brother just yet because I don't need to. I can introduce that in a little bit. I like this idea of saying, she tried one final time. So we're prepping our audience that this is going to be the last of this repeated section. So when night had fallen, Lucy tried one final time. One final time to speak, and I have to put to speak to someone rather than to speak to her brother, because then that makes it sound like she's tried to speak to her brother a few times, which isn't true. So we have to try to speak to someone. Lucy tried one final time to speak to someone about and now going back to my other pieces of writing. Last time I had, have I just skipped one? Last time I had haunting, chilling sounds, and for the mum I had horrific, distressing sounds. So I need to do something completely different. So maybe nightmarish, awful sounds. Let's swap it round. So the more serious one is at the end. So awful, nightmarish sounds would work well. When night had fallen, Lucy tried one final time to speak to someone about the awful, nightmarish sounds. Was it sounds? Was it not? It was sounds, yes. And there's our introductory sentence. And that very much fits the style and the structure that we've set in place. The next thing we would have is Lucy saying, did you hear anything last night? And that's the same dialogue we've used throughout, which I'm going to do exactly the same. So, you speak a new line, 66, capital letter, blah, blah, blah. Did you hear anything last night? Punctuation, 99. And then we need who said what, don't we? And I've done Lucy said cautiously and Lucy mumbled. And this time, because it is the final time, I want it to almost feel like it's, exhausted, like giving up, almost like she almost doesn't expect an answer from her brother. So maybe, I also need to explain that it's a brother she's speaking to because I missed out from there. So, did you hear anything last night? Lucy asked her brother. Maybe we could say she was feeling or already feeling defeated. Yeah, that gives the idea that she's kind of like asking him, but she's not really expecting an answer. Lucy asked her brother, already feeling defeated. Now, this is the point where I'm going to start changing it up. I'm going to introduce the idea that we think we know what's going to happen where they're not listening and they don't respond. And then I'm going to have him say something and actually respond. And that's going to flip the whole story on its head. So what could he be doing? He could be playing a video game, couldn't he? You know, Mum was watching TV, Dad was playing the tuba, he could be playing a video game. So, did you hear anything last night? Lucy asked her brother, already feeling defeated. He was playing a video game, and maybe we could have this idea that Lucy wasn't even expecting an answer. So we could say, he was playing a video game, so Lucy didn't expect him to answer, because that's already happened so much to her. She keeps getting ignored. So maybe she began to turn away. Suddenly, nice short sentence for effect. He paused the game. And this is where we've suddenly broken out of the structure that our audience were familiar with before. When night had fallen, Lucy tried one final time to speak to someone about the awful, nightmarish sounds. Did you hear anything last night? Lucy asked her brother, already feeling defeated. He was playing a video game, so Lucy didn't expect him to answer. Suddenly, he paused the game. Now I'm going to do something that's a little bit dangerous. I'm going to try and add in more dialogue. And the more dialogue you add in, the more likely it is to go wrong. So I'm going to keep it short. So the brother's speaking now. So new speak a new line. I'm going to keep the dialogue to the absolute minimum. All right. New speak a new line. 66. Capital letter. I'm saying I did. Capital letter blah, blah, blah. Now, that's not a shout or a question, so I've got to put my comma as my punctuation. 99. 66, capital letter, blah, 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 punctuation, 99. Who said what? So, he replied. Again, nice and short sentences now to try and build up some tension. Suddenly, he paused the game. I did. He replied. It's very, very kind of like this slow, tense, spooky story kind of thing. Let's try and add in now some reactions from Lucy, but let's do show, not tell. So she's obviously going to be feeling suddenly a lot more tense. You know, someone else heard these sounds, it's not just her. So if you're feeling a bit scared, what could we say she did to show she was scared, rather than saying Lucy felt scared? I just know it's got a pen all over my hands, never mind. Well, her face could go white. That happens when you feel scared. Or your hands could tremble. So maybe I'm going to add both of those things in. So maybe you could think of some different things that could happen when you're feeling scared. So, I did, he replied. Lucy's face went white, and her hands began to tremble. There we go. I've just added a sentence there of just to kind of show, not tell, scared emotions. So rather than saying Lucy felt scared, I'm just kind of showing you instead. Suddenly, he paused the game, ... I did, he replied. Lucy's face went white and her hands began to tremble. So now I'm going to get the brother, to walk over slowly to her to tell Lucy what he knows. So I can use that adverb of slowly to start my next sentence. So slowly, comma, he began, he began to maybe move towards her. Began to move towards her. Actually, no, I don't want to go straight into that because he was sat down, wasn't he? So maybe I can say, slowly he raised himself out of his chair. There we go. Raised himself out of his chair and began to move towards her. And began, because I'm trying to create a moment of suspense. I'm actually dragging this moment out, maybe longer than it needs to be. Slowly, he raised himself out of his chair and began to walk towards her. Full stop. I want to give the audience and Lucy a sense that something's not quite right. So maybe I can describe what his eyes were like. Maybe he was walking towards her with his eyes furrowed like that, or maybe his face was red, or maybe his jaw was tense. Maybe I can kind of describe something like that. So slowly he raised himself out of his chair and began to walk towards her. His eyes were furrowed. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a little technique where I stop the sentence there and do one word sentence. Serious. Now that's quite a complicated technique. His eyes were furrowed, full stop. Serious, full stop. So you're there adding another adjective on to describe what you described in your last sentence. So you could do his face was red, furious, or his jaw was tense, full stop, panicked. And you can kind of use a one-word sentence, a one adjective sentence to just kind of like really slow the pace down and hammer home what the characters are feeling and their intentions at that moment. Okay, I'm going to finish mine off now. What I want to leave it with is him just going, wolves, in her ear. And I think that'd be a really nice cliffhanger to leave this little paragraph on. So maybe as he gets towards, I can say he puts his hand up in order to kind of like protect or like muffle the noise so it's only her that hears it. So I could start with because I've done a few short sentences, I'll do a slightly longer sentence. Start with maybe the conjunction as. Maybe as he reached her, he lifted his hand to, how can we word it? Maybe lift his hand to her ear in order to, if we use that word I used before, muffle the noise of his single whispered word. Wolves. Yes, that's perfect. As he reached her, he lifted his hand to her ear, like this, in order to muffle, maybe it should be his mouth. Oh no, it's fine. So in order to muffle the noise of his single whispered word. And then I'm just going to squeeze it right down here because new speaker, new line, and even though he's only going to say wolves, it needs to be on a new line. So 66, capital letter, wolves, exclamation mark, 99. And we're not doing a who said what for this one because we've already explained who's saying it. Can you actually see the word wolves on there? Yeah, you can. Wolves. Ooh, tense. So what we've done there is, like I said at the beginning, we started in the structure that the audience are familiar with, and then we kind of twisted it, and we're like, yeah, the brother did hear it. So that's really different to what else has happened. So let's read through our piece of writing to see what we've got so far. When night had fallen, Lucy tried one final time to speak to someone about the awful, nightmarish sounds. Did you hear anything last night? Lucy asked her brother, already feeling defeated. He was playing a video game, so Lucy didn't expect him to answer. Suddenly, he paused the game. I did, he replied. Lucy's face went white and her hands began to tremble. Slowly, he raised himself out of his chair and began to walk towards her. His eyes were furrowed, serious. As he reached her, he lifted his hand to her ear in order to muffle the noise of his single whispered word. Wolves. And for us, that's the first time we've actually mentioned wolves. We've not, like Neil Gaiman, told our audience that it could be wolves in the wall at the very beginning. That's the first mention of wolves. So that's a really good, slow, tense introduction to that plot point 4. So that's what I'd like you guys to do today. Write the speaking to the brother plot point for your writing, and then you're going to have 4 paragraphs. 4, and then next week we're going to do the final 2 paragraphs, I think. And well, it's wolves coming out of the wall, but we're going to expand it over 2 paragraphs and make a really detailed description of that event happening, okay? So thank you so much, guys. Can't wait to see what you've done. Tune in tomorrow again for our final session of the week. Bye. Bye, bye, bye.